Message 23 from the book Green Light by André Luiz. Sensitivity. Do not allow susceptibilities to disturb your heart. Allow others to think freely as much as you are free to think. Each person sees life's problems from a different point of view. Very often, a diverse opinion to yours could be very helpful in your business or private life, as long as you are inclined to examine it. Sensitivity destroys the best relations of friendship. He who complains worsens difficulties. Do not cultivate resentments. To be sensitive is the best way to miss the best opportunities in life. Do not annoy yourself but cooperate. He who spends life hurting himself ends up as a thorn bush.
Dear God, we are very happy to be here one more time together for the study of the Spiritist doctrine. Please help us to have an open mind and heart and to have the courage to change everything we already can. So be it.
Welcome every one of us, on Carnets and all of those who are in spirit with us, studying, because we know that the group is big, because we are choosing to study about the natural laws in life, about Spiritism, within the new format of our studies, which is Spiritism Inspiring Lives. And the objective for us to carry on in this new format, as always, is to bring the consoling, hopeful, and universal message of Spiritism to the hearts of English speakers, incarnates and all of those in the spirit who also are studying with us, understanding that Spiritism is a consoling message that comes from the Enlightened Spirits who bring the message of Jesus, who brings the message from God. So we are carrying on here in our study where we finished last week, and we are starting to reflect about what are the main principles of Spiritism. That is where we started last week. And we started with God, which is a very challenging aspect for us to understand God in this stage of evolution where we are. But God is the creator of everything and everyone. God is the loving Father for all of us in creation, yes. And then we just go through and read these aspects, which we read for us to situate ourselves. Would you like to read for us, please, Chris?
The universe is God's creation. It encompasses all rational and non-rational beings, both animate and inanimate, material and immaterial. All the laws of nature are divine laws because God is their law. They cover both the physical and moral laws. God's the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. God's eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, supremely just and good.
Welcome. Hello. So here we finished last week, wasn't it? Where we finished, just for us to situate, welcome. Do you have an understanding about Spiritism? Yeah. Okay, welcome. We are studying about Spiritism. We are just now starting to reflect about the main principles of Spiritism and starting with God. And then we carry on last week. We enter now in the Spirit's book on the question 13, the attributes of God, for us to understand. Because in this stage where we are, as immortal beings, as beings in evolution, we don't have an idea what God is. So much so that Allan Kardec asked the question 1 in the Spirit's book, who is God? Is that he said? What is it wrote?
What is God?
What is God? And a stage where we are, we don't know precisely, but we know God through his attributes. Is that making sense so far? And we read last week in relation to the main ones that God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, and supremely just in God. And then the question is, doesn't we have a complete idea of God's attributes? And then in the question it starts, it's not a whole answer, but partially. From your own point of view, yes, because you believe that in so stating them, therefore, you have named all of them. Nevertheless, you should understand that there are things that transcend the intelligence of the most intelligent person, things your language cannot define, because language is limited to your ideas and sensations. We finished here. How could we now reframe that for us to situate? What are the spirits teaching us in relation to us as students studying about the natural laws in the universe, about God? How could we reframe it with our own words? What are they saying here? It comes to our minds. What they are referring. Are they telling us through our limitation of language, limitation of understanding, we don't understand yet, yes? And that is where we finish. And then we carry on now. God is eternal. Before we read, what do we understand about the attributes of God? Eternal. What comes to our mind when we hear God is eternal? Of course, our understanding also changes as we evolve, as we progress in our learning. But today, where we are, what would we say? What do I understand? I, as immortal being, a spirit as I am, what do I understand when I hear God is eternal?
See, I was stuck a little bit in the previous slide when it said that we're limited by...
Do you want to go back?
I do, yeah. When we're limited by your ideas and sensations. So we're only able to reach up until where we allow our ideas and our sensations to expand. So if we're living a life where we're trying to develop the best in ourselves, we're going to be able to feel God in a different way from those that choose to live a more materialistic life, for instance. And then we're going to have different languages and terminologies to explain that. So then when we talk about eternity, how do we live that eternity in our way of being if we're so limited by our ideas and sensation? What does eternity really feel like to me? Because sometimes being at a job for 8 hours, the whole day feels like an eternity. I'm one of those people that looks at the clock every hour and the clock doesn't go by. But when I'm having a party, it seems like it goes quickly. Mm-hmm. So my idea of eternity is going to be related to how I live in my day-to-day life.
Could we say, Donoso, that our ideas or our viewpoints, bear in mind that we are all unique as individuals, and our viewpoint about God or eternity, as you mentioned, is related to our viewpoint in relation to those aspects. And where is our viewpoint coming from? From our level of evolution, spiritually speaking, or psychological emotion. As more as we are dematerialized, which is part of the journey of evolution, our viewpoint will be much more within the spiritual reality. If I still very attached to matter, my viewpoint will be quite, let's say, presented in a way that the God is much more material than immaterial. Is that what you want to say? Yeah? Anybody else? Okay. And then now we move on to this one. God is eternal. I want to show it. But we need to learn to think for ourselves, yes? Because within Spiritism, we believe that we bring within all the knowledge. Is that right? So we are to studying doing what then? What are the purpose of studies if you bring the knowledge within? To awake the knowledge that is asleep. So, our understanding now, God is eternal, as a immortal being, children of God, as we all are. What do I understand about God is eternal? If I were to express it in my own way, how would that be? How would I refer to the attributes of God as eternal be for me now in the present?
Because he's the creator, so he was not created by no one, right? So this is the first thing. He's eternal because he was not created.
Okay.
Because he is the creator.
He is the creator, okay. Anybody else? God is eternal. Let's read. Let's see if that helps. Cynthia, would you like to read it for us, please?
If God had a beginning, then God would either have had to have sprung from nothing or would have had to have been created by a being that existed previously. Reasoning in this way, we arrive little by little at the idea of eternity and infinite.
So now, how could we decodify these teachings and place them according to our own words, which reflect our own understanding? Partially, I think Grazi already mentioned when he says, if he had a beginning, he must either have sprung from nothing. Because we know that God is the creator of everything and everyone in the universe, not on earth only. Because earth is only a tiny bit within the universe, okay? And then it carries on. It is thus that step by step we arrive at the idea of infinity and eternity. What does it mean? Step by step. How is that coming to us? We arrive at the idea. How is that coming to us?
Still a really infantile way of seeing it, but step by step as we see our evolutionary process, isn't it? So we know that now we're in the world of trials and expiations, going back where it's just a process and step of reincarnation. And step by step, as we go through these motions of purifying ourselves, we will get a better notion of what infinity and eternity is. But it's okay not to know exactly what that is, where we are, because we still have so much other things that we need to get a grasp of before we reach that point.
Yes, it is okay. It's almost like we still are in a baby state of evolution, consciously speaking, in relation to God's laws and in relation to understanding God. So it's okay if we accept ourselves as loving beings as we all are, who are under the law of progress, under the law of evolution. When they say step by step, means gradually through the law of progress and evolution, as immortal beings, children of God as we all are, we are learning about the definitions of God and about his laws gradually, because that refers to the expansion of our consciousness. As we started to say that we bring God's laws within, which is true, because we have been created simple and ignorant, and since then onwards we are evolving. We evolve through different kingdoms. Here we are now in a human kingdom, but still very in the beginning. So it's okay not to know what we don't know. What is not okay is to say I don't know and think that's okay. That's not okay. Because the great learners in life always teach us it's okay not to know. It's not okay to stop on that level. We need to be curious. We need to be willing to learn more. I do not understand today, but I carry on study, then we carry on learning. Is that okay? Anybody else? No? Then we carry on now the other attribute of God, which is related to God is immutable. Barbara, would you like to read it for us?
If God were subject to change, then the laws that govern the universe would have no stability.
So now when we read that, how would we express our understanding currently in relation to the attribute that God is immutable?
I think if I compare with human laws that we can change, and because we change, we evolve, and for that we can change laws that not long ago being gay was a crime. So now it's the opposite. So it's thankful that we can change the law, the human laws. So we cannot compare the God's law to the human laws, because if change all the time, how would it work that?
Mm-hmm.
Now we can be standing, now no. So need to be something mutable.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think because we think God as a person, it's quite difficult to imagine. So it's how some things not change and it's eternal. So how it is.
I think, as you mentioned about the expansion of the conscience, as we learn gradually, I think we are going to, of course, we have the human laws. So human laws are going to be reaching towards God's law. One day, ideally, I think, as a law of progress, everyone is going to reach a point. All the laws in this planet will be divine laws, like the laws in nature. So at the moment, because we are still in the beginning of the evolution and we are still learning, as we are in the beginning, I think that's why we are still struggling.
Okay, when we say we are in the beginning, we all agree we are in the beginning. And now we say in the beginning of our evolution, what does it mean actually? I was listening to you and I was thinking, what does it mean actually to me now? That means also that we are in the beginning of understanding ourselves as immortal beings. Is that making sense? Because for us to understand God's laws, don't we need to start from ourselves? And that is a process, human-wise, analyzing. We are at the beginning of awakening that we are not a physical body. We are immortal beings. And we are divine beings in essence. We are these beings in evolution. So as more as we awake, psychological and emotional, as we are essentially, that will also help us to promote a greater understanding about the attribute of God, that God is immutable. It's not related to human laws, as you well said. Yet human laws are part of God's laws, aren't they?
This God is immutable. It's important as Spiritists to have that ingrained in our consciousness, because when we go through the other questions and we start asking questions, why does this happen to me? How could it, if God is not just? Then we go back to this question, well, actually the laws that govern us is perfect. It's immutable, it's internal. So it's not the laws that need to change, it's our way that we look at the interactions that need to change. So this is like the foundation of our awakening and our acceptance of where we are spiritually at this moment.
Oh, definitely, yes. Because God's laws, they are immutable, yes, as you said. Or laws change and or selves change in relation to understanding God. Yeah, good. Anybody else? No? Then we move on to the next one now, which is God is immaterial. Fernanda, would you like to read that first, please? Oh, yes, please. No? For me to read, I need to see it.
This means that God's nature differs from everything we call matter. Otherwise, God would not be immutable, but would be subject to the transformation of matter.
Okay, let's explore that. How do we understand the attribution of God is immaterial?
The transformation of matter is what happens to us as organic beings, spiritual beings in organic bodies, where we grow, we're born, we grow, we become older, then our physical body dies, disintegrates, and then we go through that whole cycle. That doesn't happen to God, especially to the notion of what we have got.
Okay, anybody else? What else comes to us? To first, from everything we call matter. My question when I read that was, do we really know everything what is matter? When seen from the highest spheres, I wonder if they see different what we see. Is that making sense what I'm trying to say? Because it's still, even on the physical level, what we call matter is quite restricted to us according to our level of awareness. And those who are much more evolved consciously, they see matter from a different perspective. So for me, there is much more which is called matter than what we perceive currently. Okay? God would not be immutable, but would be subject to the transformation of matter. That would be a disorder in the universe, chaos. And we know that everything that comes from God is based on order, balance. Yes? Are we clear here? That was easy. Now, God is unique. If there were several gods, then there would be no unity of design or power in the organization of the universe. So what we understand of the attribution of God is unique, if we were to decodify according to our own words. Are there fields of knowledge on earth that believe in different gods? Yes, they are. Yeah. So what do we learn here then? What does Spiritism teaches us?
I think it's trying to tell something about believing in many gods and believing only one God. Is that still today, and many, as we are human beings, we used to believe like in Roman gods and other many gods. It's not only one God.
Which kind of gods do we still remember that we believed in our past? Let's activate our unconscious memories. Which kind of gods? If you don't remember us, elder people, which kind of gods? The sun. What else? What else did we call gods? Nature?
If we're looking at the mythologies, we've got several gods there, isn't it? The god of war, the god of sun, the god of justice, the god of beauty, the god of love. Whereas we know that these are spiritual entities that we're believing in, but the actual God is one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite revolutionary.
Yes, it is.
In that sense, for us to get our heads around.
Mm-hmm. Simplifying, isn't it? Yeah. Anybody else? Is that okay? Then now we move on to God is all powerful. Who would like to read that? Cynthia?
God is all powerful because he is unique. If he did not possess sovereign power, there would be something more powerful or no less powerful than himself. He would not have created all things, and those which he had not created would be the work of another God.
Would you like to comment? When we take the first phrase, God is all powerful because he is unique. How do we understand that? How could we express our understanding today? What do I, as an immortal being, currently in my stage of evolution, understand when I hear God is all powerful because he is unique? What do I understand that God is all powerful? Do we have different definitions of power?
Yes, but I think it's also relieving because if you think God is all powerful, it means there's nothing in the universe that can compete with God. Because in some religions they teach that we, as well as God, there is another force which is equally powerful but not good, evil.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with the Spiritism we learn that this is not the case. We have evil, which is ignorance, but above everything there is God.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? What comes to our minds?
It's so complex to understand this because it's still, even in our language, it's that he is unique. So we still think as a person. We cannot dissociate as a subject. So how is something so powerful and is not created by something? And how it is. So if you start thinking about it, I think I can go on and on and on and cannot even describe. So I think it's better that the spirits want us to understand at our level, because if you start thinking as before in our old concepts of God as a person or as a mythology, we want to compare, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that we can compare us.
Mm-hmm.
We're still child of God, but we cannot think better than God or in the same level.
I think it's challenging for us to think beyond the human level, isn't it? When we read God is all powerful because he is unique. The he, what comes up when we hear he? Are we still within our cycle on a male level?
Yes.
And is that really what the spirits mean? So immediately when we hear he, we mean a male. But God cannot be in that level. I guess that has to do what we studied previously through our pure language or vocabulary. They use words that are available for us currently. But in reality, when you think about that God is all this powerful being, cannot be he in relation to our understanding as he is male. Is that making sense? Yeah. And again, we don't need to disturb ourselves. So what is it then? For sure, if you understand that Jesus is the summary of the animals and animal, therefore is the child of God, what do we conclude here? I guess he or she becomes irrelevant. They are just psychic aspects that we conquer, and yet we don't have fully understanding how it will be. But it goes beyond the male or female element.
We learn that with the superior beings, that it comes to a point where they have both, because they're attributes, isn't it?
Yeah.
The female attributes and the male attributes. That's why we keep on going and coming back, to be able to get a grasp of the best part of both and unite that in that way of ourselves as being. So that's really...
So yes, they are. When we look beyond the physicality, we understand that male and female, as immortal beings, we are not male or female, but we come in different reincarnations through a male body or a female body in order to develop the psychological and emotional aspects within that dimension, within that reality. Is that making sense? Because we are immortal beings, we are not body beings. But of course, when we are in the male function, position, then we develop more the male, which are more the rational aspects on the psycho level. Then we're supposed to be in the female, not saying that is always the case and not always immediately we may learn, but that is, let's say, the aim for us to develop more the female aspect of our psyche. What are the predominant aspects of a female? Emotion. What is that?
Because we have been in the past being so was better to be all rational, all aggressive, and not be emotional. So most of us come as female to learn how to deal with our emotions and be more subtle and loving way.
Okay, is it wrong to be rational? No. What is wrong then?
Rationalization.
Intellectualization. But the two wings that we all need as spirits is rational and emotional, yeah? But yes, on the emotional level, what do we come as immortal beings to develop? Nurturing ourselves as well, and everyone, and everything, yeah? What else on the field?
There's something about femininity is meant to be delicacy. I don't know how to put that.
Kindness,
Yeah.
kindness,
Yeah.
gentleness, patience. What else? Tenderness, mother aspect to mother ourselves and others, caring. Anything else? It comes more down to the sentiments. We are invited to develop our emotional intelligence. But it's nothing wrong to be on the rational level. We also, as spirits, need to learn to think. Because some of us, on the female level, we are too emotional. We have difficult to be in a balance way, yeah? I'm so emotional, I cry for everything. No, that is disturbance. It's not what we refer. So we need to learn to balance ourselves. Are we okay here? And what do we learn when we are in the male position as immortal beings? What are the psychic aspects that we can develop throughout those experiences? Planning,
Order.
providing, thinking. Yeah? Quite often when we are only in a female or on the initial phase in a female, we feel too much and we think too less. And then we are in relationships and men don't feel that much. And then we cannot understand why my partner is not understanding my language. And the partner may say, why is she always talking about emotions? Is that making sense? So we need to gradually balance ourselves. And it doesn't mean that if I know something that the other needs to know, we are different and we are learning. Yeah? Did we go to the end here? I lost myself, yes? Okay. So we move on then. God is supremely just and good, which is another attribute of God. Grazie, would you like to read it for us, please?
Yes, the providential wisdom of the divine laws is revealed as clearly in the smallest thing as in the greatest. And this wisdom renders it impossible to doubt either his justice or his goodness.
Would you like to comment?
That's the main divine law, I think. It's quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's the justice and love. It's compounds all the virtues and the qualities and the right balance between justice and love.
Okay, what else comes to us? The providential wisdom of the divine laws is revealed as clearly in the smallest things as in the greatest. What do we understand the smallest things and the greatest?
When you say smallest, I think of atoms, you know? And in the smallest, not that I know much about it, but in science it shows that the perfection of how everything is created, and then in the greatest, in what we can perceive.
Mm-hmm. What else comes to us? Smallest things, what else comes to our ideas? Any idea? The bees, the butterflies, the little things that we sometimes in nature may not attribute, but is, isn't it? Is the manifestation of God. It's his creation. Yeah? And then clearly, and this wisdom rendered is impossible to doubt either his justice and his goodness. What do we understand about God's justice so far? What comes to our minds? Is God just? We may say, oh my God, sometimes too much. What comes to our mind when we say God is just? Do we have on earth different definitions about God's justice? Yes or no? Yes. Which kind of information do we have when we hear God's justice?
What goes round comes round.
Okay. Do we also understand sometimes that God is punitive, which is a heavy reference? Is that the way that we within Spiritism understand? No. So what do we understand? That God is justice when we say that?
Coming to be more the law of cause and effect, and not as justice, as punitive or something like that. So it's not God that judges us, but it's the law of cause and effect. It's something that I did that come back.
Okay. And within the God's justice, which is a God of love, so yes, God's justice means within the law of cause and effect, but does it mean in a harsh way?
No.
If not, in which way is it then?
It's in a loving way.
In a loving way.
To evolve,
Yes.
not to punish us.
Yes. So whatever wrong we do, and we are always still doing wrong, all of us in this level of evolution, but the first is that more or less, with more gravity or less, but we always still are learning. So God will never stop loving us because we still do mistakes. God carries on loving us as much as He did when we were doing the mistake, because He is love. He, through the law of cause and effect, will allow us to have new opportunities, new possibilities, that we can learn to do things in a different way.
You know what I remember now is a story. I don't know if it's part of one of Andre Luis or if I just heard it in a lecture, but it was about 3 spirits who had disincarnated after having caused cruelty to masses of people. They'd killed a lot of people. And one of them decided to immerse themselves in guilt, wanted to reincarnate with disabilities, which was permitted. The other one decided he wanted to live a life of deprivations to be able to relieve his own consciousness. And then the third one decided that he wanted to be a doctor without borders. So, I mean, the way that we interact with our consciousness is the justice of God. Mm-hmm. So we make mistakes out of our ignorance. We will need to repair every single one of them. But how we're going to retribute that back, because it's not to do with others at all. No. It's all internal, because at the end we have to live with ourselves. Mm-hmm. We transition with people, but we have to live with ourselves. And the justice is that we're not going to reach perfection until we allow ourselves to reach perfection. God is ready for us to be perfect. He's been ready for us to be perfect for a long time, but we choose to hold that back because we have guilt and we have all these feelings that we feel like we need to disperse ourselves from. How we're going to do that is His justice. Mm-hmm. And always giving us the opportunity to actually do that in a different way, which is the beauty of the justice. So it's not so much that I did there and I received back here. No, I did there, and then I have the choice and the decision to how is it that I'm going to transform the situation now. Mm-hmm. And then I have my choice, and that's where my free will comes in, and that's where the other laws come in, which is that's why it's supremely just. That's why it's supremely good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? What else comes to Saint?
I think sometimes in my narrow-minded, I think about justice in my own point of view. That's what makes it in a wrong way, I think. When you think about justice, we don't know, we don't think about everybody. We think about particular points of view. So sometimes what is just for me cannot be just for you, for example. So sometimes I feel that this sense of justice of God should be really
equal. But is God's
everyone.
Justice equal to everyone?
I think it should be, yes.
Why should be?
Because
would God have unjust justice? That's making sense. But our understanding in relation to justice differs regarding our own level of evolution. Let's imagine I'm very primitive state. For me, justice may be killing each other if someone doesn't do what I want. That is my ignorance or my level where I am. But for someone who is more civilized, for them, they will not consider that justice. They could consider that crime. As the example that Barbara gave previously, earlier on, in relation to homosexuality. In the past, it was a crime. In the past, it was diagnosed as a pathology on the psychiatry level. Today, we are almost like gradually reaching a level that if I consider someone abnormal because he is homosexual, I'm with a great psychological disturbance. That will be my diagnosis, will be a reverted position. Because it's my distortion, how I see my brothers and sisters in humanity. Is that making sense? So as more as we evolve, our sense of justice will evolve too. What, if you carry on thinking that way, what is justice referring to? God's justice. What would that be summarized at? Love. As more as we evolve, and all of us are on the journey of evolution, or let's say egocentric references, concepts of justice will fade away gradually as we actualize ourselves within the natural laws of God and God's justice, which is love. And we will repeat the experience up to the point that we learn to love. Love ourselves and love others. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then what do we understand about God goodness? God is good. What is that? How is that coming to us today? How do I, as a child of God, understand that God is good? God goodness. His goodness. What is that presenting to me?
Kipling is saying that this is a goodness when it's good for everyone, and it's still something we need to get our heads around because it's in our day-to-day lives. It's usually not good for everyone. It's usually just good for me and for mine, for those that think like me. So learning that attribute in our day-to-day is definitely an invitation of spiritualization, isn't it?
And what are we dealing with ourselves when we already are aware that perhaps in the stage where I am currently, I may be more focused on me, on mine. What is that telling about me? Because being aware of that, is that not part of the evolution already? Self-awareness. And what is that telling about me? It's my pride, my selfishness. It's the me, very close to my egocentric state of mind. That I'm always prioritizing myself and others, but not humanity as the big family. That comes secondary. And as more as we evolve, then we will see equal mine, my family, body family, but also I can simultaneously accommodate myself within that. But what do we need when we say as more as we evolve? As more as we evolve with what? In which areas? What do we need to evolve to be in that state?
Morally.
Yes, surely morally, but which aspects? Because morally is more global language, which is correct, but it's not specific. So what do I need to evolve, progress on a moral, ethical level? Because we identified that what holds us back is selfishness and pride, okay? Personal interest. Egoistic state of mind. So what do we need to develop then that we haven't developed yet? Charity and humbleness and love. Yes. And that comes, if you take love, we can embrace all the different virtues here. Respect for each other. It's not just to mind on the body level. Other beings are also my brothers and sisters. I also owe to respect them, to love them, to cooperate, to help them. What else would us as a spirit need to develop on the moral level?
We need to think about the charity in a way that Jesus told us. You mean? Is the being good to everybody?
What?
It's very easy, not taking so hard with everyone's
Limitations.
limitations. Thank you. And third, forgiveness.
Okay. So is that easy for us all in this stage of evolution to be benevolent to everyone that comes across in our journey? Honestly, everyone even is. Are you sure? Yes. And it's not me. Is it easy for us to be, what is the second one? Benevolent? Indulgent to everyone? Is it easy for us to forgive everyone that comes across us and really triggers our ego? Is it easy? Who are the ones that is easier for us to forgive? The dear ones. Always? No. Because sometimes there are harsh bits in the dear ones. or I am wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. So again, it's a journey that we are gradually really progressing in terms of understanding intellectually God's laws, and then put efforts into the continuous training and living according to that new way, so that we incorporate that on the emotional level, because our emotional intelligence is very underdeveloped than the intellectual. And what we carry on the intellect is quite wrong in relation to the natural laws. Of course, there's a lot of learning to do.
I mean, when we look at charity as described in the Gospel, but it's great benevolence with all indulgence and forgiveness of offenses, we take that at the stage where we are, and we look at benevolence, and we start truly studying ourselves. Okay, well, I can't be benevolent with all. I can't, because that's not where I am, will be false. But I can start respecting. I can start looking people in the eyes. I can start not thinking badly. I can start by not talking badly. So that's a start. So I'm not benevolent, I'm not perfect, but that little effort, which the Spirits say in the Spirit's book, is the minimal efforts, is already an act of benevolence. We're not good at reason. And then, okay, well, I can't be indulgent with everyone, but do I go out and make that little effort, a little bit more, where I actually want to stay in? And no, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my part, even though I know it's very, and we can't forgive all of them, but then if we look at what forgiveness actually means, and that's where the studies come in, to have a look at where I can get that little bit of exercise, and that strengthens us. Mm-hmm. So regardless of the judgments outside, regardless of the demands outside of our perfection, we feel okay with ourselves, because you know what, I'm doing the best I can right now. And that's what the Spirits ask us, to feel good with ourselves. So we can only do that when we're making these gradual efforts.
Yes. Because it's not about to be perfect, which is impossible for us to reach, but it's perfecting ourselves on a daily basis on the little things. And as you said, forgiveness. Well, how can we forgive sometimes if we still are hurt? We cannot transcend immediately our nature, but we can choose to, on a daily basis, to think in a different way. Forgiving means accepting. We need to educate, and that is easier to be said than done, but that is the way forward. To re-educate ourselves that forgiveness means learning to accept that the other is as it is, no more, no less, as a valuable human being, because he's the creation of God. And that means that we need to shift our emotional or our psychological lies that we build throughout, or illusions, or false concepts. Because in reality, no one changed anybody else unless us. And that we start to flexibilize ourselves. And also in training us in that way, we are learning to train to love ourselves and also to love others. Because when we practice forgiveness, we are practicing love. When we practice indulgence in the little movements, we are exercising love towards others. If you learn to be patient, we are training ourselves in terms of the ability to love more and more ourselves and others. And that, in the present, already we have the feedback that it does good when we move in that direction, even if it's step by step, small movements. But all these small movements, they are cumulative, and they bring already the feedback that we are in the right direction. And if we do wrong, what do? Get into the guilt complex? No. Why waste our psychic energy and time to do that? So what are we invited to learn then? Instead of guilt.
Assume responsibility.
Take responsibility. What is the responsibility? I don't like responsibility. Okay, can I have that response? For sure, I did for centuries. Why? Because if I was for centuries irresponsible, do I suddenly like responsibility? No. So what do we now understand responsibility to be? An internal autonomy of learning to think for ourselves in a natural way, according to the natural laws, in a loving way, and choose to restructure self-love. If I did a mistake, I report to myself or the others, sorry. If the other doesn't accept, that will not affect me as long as I carry on loving according to the love of God. That is inner freedom. And we all are free within to do that move. Are we okay so far? Okay, let's then move on to the next one. Now we start talking about the main principles of Spiritism regarding immortality of the soul. What do we understand about the immortality of the soul? How could we express ourselves?
That the soul, our soul will never die. We are what we are and will always be. We are going to have many existences, but we are not going to die.
Okay, I do have a doubt, please. Our soul will never die. So we have a soul.
We are.
What is different in having a soul and we are?
We are in spirit, and when we are incarnated,
It's expressed as a soul, but we are immortal beings, yes, therefore we don't have a spirit, we are the spirit. Otherwise, if we start to think, well, I have a spirit, then we can keep it in a cupboard or whatever. No, we are the spirit, yes, okay. What else comes to us? Immortality of the soul. Is that a subject that really feels good within? Yes. Yeah, yes, why?
One life and several existences.
A journey that continues. There is no such a thing as dying, death. Death is life. We are not a body. We are spirits. We live forever. We evolve forever. What else? Opportunities. What else comes just when we hear immortality of the soul?
Detachment.
And detachment means what?
So many levels. From who I think I am, from what it is I think I should be. So much.
Inner freedom?
Inner freedom.
Yes,
With
detachment.
respect for everything that we are and what we're doing, because we need to value our person's existence, but it's not, it doesn't make it heavy. It doesn't feel like it's the end all
Yes.
of everything.
And neither we need to drive and get everything because this is the last chance that I have. Yeah, because that also puts pressure on us. Or if you don't get things right, oh my God, now the Lord is dying, cannot do anything anymore about it. I can at any moment. But the immortality of the soul talks about the inner freedom. The inner freedom. Yeah? Okay, let's see what we learn here. We start with the first one. Would you like to read, Vladimir?
What are the main principles of Spiritism? The immortality of the soul shows us that we are immortal spirits, born simple and ignorant, with aptitude for good and evil, with destiny to perfection and happiness.
Should we go up to here because it's quite long, so it's better for us to go gradually, yes? Would you like to comment after this point? I know that you just arrived, but...
I think that this is linked with what we've been seeing, that the importance for us to enlighten ourselves that we are immortal spirits and that we are perfecting ourselves, we are learning. So the more we develop the virtues, the more we grow, the more we understand things from a different level, from a different point of view. Because if we stay stuck where we are, with our principles that we have wrongly developed, then we can't go forward because we are holding ourselves back with the emotions and the wrong learning that we did. Our habits are still very primitive. So the more we use our conscience to develop the virtues that we are welcome to learn now and understand that we are still learning and we may still do it in the wrong way, we are having the opportunity to let that flourish.
Okay. And us, when we read, the immortality of the soul shows us that we are immortal spirits, Born simple and ignorant, with aptitude for good and evil, with destiny to perfection and happiness. Apart from what Claudius said, what do we, according to our viewpoint, understand about born simple and ignorant? Are you telling me that I'm ignorant? Some means me say, oh, they're telling about it. How do we understand that? We have been born simple and ignorant.
The spirits are talking about the principle, the beginning of our creation.
Okay. Without knowledge? Yeah. Yes, Cynthia, you are very quiet. Come on. It's important. So what do we understand? What do you understand about simple and ignorant?
Yeah, we were born, like everyone said already, without knowledge. And like we've been talking a lot about the laws of God, there's a lot of work, and we have a lot of work to do.
So you are starting now, yeah? Good, good. Simple and ignorant mean when we say simple doesn't mean that because previously we mentioned that we bring the truth within. So where is that now in our psychic when you think about simple and ignorant? And yet I heard that I bring the divine knowledge within myself. How is that?
I like the phrase of the famous painter,
Da Vinci.
Yeah, that he says the most, the highest form of, but now, he says is simplicity. And when you think that, to be simple, born simple and ignorant, but when you have simplicity within everything you do, within everything you are, you have love and purity. Because the simplicity brings the harmony within the charity, the love, what Jesus teaches us, because it's simple, it's humility. Humildade? Yeah, humility. It's so simple, it's so light, it's so easy, and still we complicate it so much with our ignorance. We can't see it.
So can we say then, Father Denise, that the love that comes from God, the creator of everything and everything, is simple. But through our lack of love, we complicate everything. We distort everything. We see everything complex. Because of our complexities that we bring as learnings from previous stages. That now that we are carrying on in the law of evolution, and now we are more aware of ourselves, and then we are invited to cooperate individually to re-educate ourselves now. Then discomplicate ourselves. Does that make sense? Then we feel the reality more. We just don't think only, we also feel. Simplicity means also humbleness. And then we become more spacious within, instead of tight up. Is that making sense to you, what I'm saying?
At the beginning, when we learning to reinforce the little aptitudes we have, when we recognize ourselves with the virtues, it feels so awkward. It feels like, you're being squeezed to do that. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do it because I have to do it. And still, once you practice...
I like when you said at the beginning. Can we revolt ourselves? Yes, can we revolt ourselves when we hear God's words? Can we revolt ourselves when we hear Jesus' love, inviting us to work and to be good? I'm being good. The others are so rude with me, and you are telling me to be good? Yeah. That shows our rebelliousness, yes? Our pride, yes, internally. Because really, that is what we learn gradually. We can rebel about even God, who is only love. Because we bring God's laws within ourselves, created simple and ignorant, but we bring them as seeds, which need to be stimulated. By who? By us. Because we bring everything. That is where we grow stronger, psychologically and emotionally, which means stronger ethically and morally, stronger in facing our lessons with honor in God. Does that make sense? Yeah? Anything else? See, now we saw about simple and ignorant, and now the immortality of the soul shows us that we are all immortal spirits with aptitude for good and evil. Who develops that? How do we understand that with aptitude for good and evil?
They're part of the law of free will, where we learned that, where we have the aptitude for both. In the Spirits book, it describes very much what we're studying this morning is about cruelty. You know? So when we look at us and we look at the stage now, not even going back in history, certain animalistic instincts is part of the instinct, but the cruelty is unnecessary. So, but because there's the law of free will, some people choose to exercise cruelty, which is very different from just being brutal, just being aggressive. Cruelty is something completely different. So there we have the attitude to choose to what it is that we want to do. Do we want to work towards goodness, because nobody is truly good on earth? Or do we want to work towards evil, which we do exercise a lot, unfortunately?
What would be, in our stage where we are in humanity, what would be aspects, behaviors of evil?
Every time that we try to harm either ourselves or others intentionally is evil.
Okay.
Any sort of harm. Impeding others' free will, speaking badly, actual physical harm, abuse. Okay. So they're all expressions of evil, destruction of that which is beautiful, which is good.
Any other example of evil?
I would say jealousy.
Jealousy, pride, vanity, selfishness. In pride and selfishness. We have the different. We are just talking about pride and selfishness, but if you go through now to find out the aspects that are the subdivision of it, they're huge. But yes, are all the aspects that we developed, not that we have been created by God in that way, and now we are learning actually, the way that I use my free will is hurting me, is creating sufferings for myself. And as an immortal being, I can learn to develop my free will now in a responsible way according to the natural laws. We have the reference, the guidance, how to do that. And in that way, we choose to develop goodness, good. What are aspects, attitudes of good? It seems that we lost that module.
Humility, simplicity.
Humility, simplicity, patience, tolerance. What else? Gosh, that should come as fluent. Persistence, insistence in doing good. What else?
Process of consciousness.
Process of consciousness. What else? Forgiveness. Say loud. Even the incarnate didn't hear that. Forgiveness. Yes. What else? Humbleness. What else? Self-love. Self-love, which doesn't mean selfishness. Self-love. What does it mean? I'm a child of God. Self-love. What else? In terms of doing good. Be silent, but not in the wrong way. Silent in the right way, in the right moment, yes? That also is a virtue which we need to put a lot of work into to conquer that stage, to silence our evil internally, yeah? That we dominate ourselves, okay? Discipline is very important. Order, punctuality. It's the clock. No, it's not the clock. Punctuality, psychically speaking. Order comes from where? From the clock, no, from God. As more as we evolve, more we develop the order, because we bring it within. Then I train myself. How do I train myself to be punctual and develop order? When I speak to a friend, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock is 2 o'clock. When I speak to my boss, 2 o'clock is 2 o'clock. When I have a reference meet to my father, 2 o'clock is 2 o'clock. Is that making sense? I train myself. Is that easy these days for us? It is a question. Is it easy?
We don't want to confess it.
I know, but the silence confessed already. Silence compromise. So these are these simple experiences. We are learning to develop the virtues, the good within. And sometimes we don't think about that everything on earth is favoring us to develop our potentials. If I have difficulty with punctualities with a clock, for example, that means that I have difficulty in developing order so far, internally. Punctual, think about it. The time belongs to whom? To God. So if I'm not punctual, I am respecting God. I'm respecting the other being that I refer to? No. Do I respect myself if I don't do that? No. So can we see when we start to think about how that goes more deeper? And it's all about promoting us spiritually, developing our superior faculties. Okay? Then we go on with destiny and perfection and happiness. Oh, the immortality of the soul shows us that we are immortal spirits with destiny to perfection and happiness. Do we like the part that says happiness? Gosh, we are really aiming to be happy, isn't it? What means happiness to me in this stage? Everyone is allowed to think aloud. What is here? What are we understanding about happiness here? Immortal beings with destiny to perfection and happiness.
I think it is happiness that talk about. It's not the happiness that we are habituated here on earth. Because we are think happiness here is having things or it's the kind of happiness that is depends on everything else and not just ourselves.
Okay.
And I think I read, I don't remember the book, but it was saying the true happiness is when you make others happy.
Yes.
So that was so comforting for myself because I think always we want the others to make us happy. And when you think that make others happy couldn't be your happiness, we can be happy in this stage.
Why?
Because it's easy to do, it's not something.
And why don't we do it if that is easy?
Because we are so
Selfish and personal. And we just think that they all ought to make us happy. And you don't look at me in a way that you should, according to my understanding. You are not giving to me what you're supposed to know already. You forgot my birthday, and then I get angry. Real happiness is following God's laws within. We have the reference within. It has nothing to do with outside. If someone forgot my birthday day, it's nothing to do with that. As long as I'm loyal to God and love myself and love others and accept them. If I'm an immortal being, do I really be a lot of concern about my birthday? I'm immortal. Is that making sense? Immortal. So now I'm fighting about the date on earth. Can you see what I mean? When we open up and want to be happy, we have the power within, relative to be happy, quite happy on earth. But as long as we find the resource within and no longer without. God is within and without, but we find the happiness within, and we have been created by God with love in order to learn to love and therefore to be happy. But we need to reflect more what love means under God's understanding. It's not a selfish way. It's learning to love everyone. If I don't have anyone go and make someone happy, because then I have the return of that. Okay, so we're coming to the end today of our studies. And as always, we close it with our prayer in these final moments. Giving thanks to God, our loving Father, who created us simple and ignorant, but with great love and tenderness, for us to learn to love ourselves as immortal beings as we all are, as learners of ourselves, learning that we already are loving beings in our essence, that we already are essentially beings of goodness, and choose gradually to exercise goodness within, everywhere and with everyone, practicing. Learning to be good means to learn about God's laws. Choose to develop the great faculties as immortal beings, resignation and obedience. We may choose on a daily basis, as loving beings as we all are, to learn to be more humble, simplifying our thinking, simplifying our feelings, simplifying our behaviors, our needs, and seek more and more to spiritualize ourselves, to be more forgiving, more tolerant, more loving, cooperating for the good of all, be at home, be at workplace, be in a community, in the society, doesn't matter. Choosing to be instrument of goodness within and without. We ask the blessings of the enlightened beings who are here with us, to bless every and each one of us with their light, peace, and love. So much.